Is the screen big enough? Or
Yes.
should I decrease or increase the size there? Okay.
Looks good to me.
All right.
See, we're still having quite a few people signing on, so we'll give them another minute or two. The number keeps going up, so. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started with some of our housekeeping details. Most of you are familiar with by now, but I want to welcome everyone. I'm Brian Caldwell. I'm the chair of NCLUG. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's NCLUG Tech Talk. We've had a few of these now, and we really appreciate everyone's participation. Today we have a three-part series from NCDOT on ORD. Part one is a sneak peek inside the NCDOT ORD lab. I'd like to personally thank NCDOT for preparing this presentation for all the NCLUG members. I'd like to really appreciate their effort and hard work to put on this presentation for us. Some of the housekeeping details are all the attendees will be muted, so there's a lot of people going to be on there today, probably 200 or so we're going to mute everyone. Anybody have any questions, be sure to put it in the chat box. Okay, actually has some few questions at the beginning if anybody answered those. Let's see, we're also going to have a, as time allows, we'll see how this goes. We can have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. This presentation is being recorded. There will be a link after the event if anyone wants to go back and look at it later. NCLUG is also offering PDH credits. That was on the registration when you registered for the event. If you want to make sure, you can also go to NCLUG.com website. So after the NCLUG presentation, we'll be sending out PDH receipts. For the people who attend the live meeting, there is no credit for looking at the recorded session. I think we're aggressively trying to keep up with the PDH receipts. If you haven't got one since for the other tech talks, just be patient. We'll get them out to you. We also will be holding a drawing for a $50 gift card at the conclusion of the presentation. Stay here, stay online for that. See, I think that's all for the. I think Jason Moore is going to give a little introduction for Oak before we start with the presentation. I'll hand it over to Jason. He can get started on that. Thank everyone for attending.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. As Brian said, my name is Jason Moore, and I supervise the support services section of the roadway design unit. And what we have for you today is part one of a three-part presentation we had in mind to give everyone an idea of what's been going on with ORD in the department, and specifically the roadway design unit. Today's presentation will be presented by Oak Tamavong, who I know you all know. Oak has been indispensable in the department's ORD migration efforts, not only with the day-to-day tasks of development, testing, and support, but staying abreast of the latest ORD developments from Bentley, and some of which he's going to tell you about today. Today's presentation concerns NCDOT CONNECT WorkSpaces, which gets a little technical. I would say that most of it is probably geared toward the office CAD coordinator rather than the average end user. But the second and third parts we have in mind, which will come in later tech talks, are most definitely for the end users. And those will get into discussing ORD design tools and plan production tools. I should point out that some of the things you'll see today, just like the stickers say on our plans, are subject to change, but they won't be without notice because we will let you know as things change. The current delivery mechanism and desktop configuration of our workspaces that you'll see today is temporary. There are some stopgap decisions we have had to make today to keep migration going, but these decisions are also to keep us aligned with Bentley's workspace and workset direction they have planned for the future. So please bear in mind that most of the operations and layout you'll see today is temporary. We also have DOT representatives online today for today's session who will try to answer questions as we go along. So feel free to type those in the chat window as you think of them. And anything we can't handle, we'll defer to Oak at the end. We should have plenty of time at the end for folks to unmute and ask questions if you prefer. And I guess we'll use the raise your hand button like we've been doing. And Patty or Jeff or Brian can call on people to ask questions directly. Okay, so I think that's enough talking from me. Without further ado, I'll hand things over to you, Oak.
All right. Thank you, Jason. And good afternoon, everybody. In addition to Jason's intro there, also want to mention, I'm just showing you the changes that's happening at the NCDOT and the roadway workspaces level. There are other units that's developing the workspace, and I hope that some of these units can share some of their development success stories and challenges with the workspaces and what they've been developing so far. I'm just showing you one piece of that puzzle there. So there's a lot more that, that goes into the Connect workspace than just roadway design and, Oak. There's, I've seen a lot of amazing development in location surveys with Emmer and his folks, Hydro with Brooke and her folks, even structures with Open OBM and Open Ridge with Nick and his folks, Open Ground to get twos and stuff with Christina's working on. So all the pieces are starting coming in, and all the NCDOT units are represented in this Connect workspace, and I'm just honored to tell their story. So this is their story, not one particular unit or one entity. And CAS services as NCDOT has been indispensable with their coordination with us, with what the unit wants to do with the workspaces. So I have to give credits to them also. Okay, so to start out, here's the panel that's going to answer some of your questions while when I'm doing the presentations. Here, type in the chat window any questions, and they can answer them for you. Okay, the NCDOT Connect workspace was a collaboration between multiple groups. It all falls under the ORD implementation manager, which is mainly Jeff Garland for now. We seek input from Bentley, from the private sector, from the private engineering firms, NCDOT divisions, NCDOT units, NCDOT CAS services. What would you like to see the workspace, change to make your work better? I mean, how would you like to work using this Connect workspace and make it work for you? So all those inputs that we received, we kind of consider them, take them in, and we have these sessions, brainstorming sessions of say, okay, I mean, we may not consider or we cannot implement certain suggestions at a time, but it's always in the back of my mind when we can implement them, we started looking into them and develop them. So all these groups here that you see here uh, are integral or important to the workspace development uh, as it is today. So the first thing that's always considered was the non-managed versus the managed workspace conundrum. Uh, what we're going to talk about today is the non-managed workspace, which is, the 5 groups that I mentioned here. But in the back of our mind is always there's this mirror copy here of the managed workspace and project-wise that also has to be developed. It's just a mirror copy or in functionality uh, of what the non-managed workspace should function or look like. So right now, everything is done through the non-managed workspace outside project-wise. But we are in Jason's group, Todd and James and I are testing doing the project just solely in project-wise managed workspace. So we are starting testing project-wise, not managed workspace in project-wise right now on the project. There's some things you can't do in project-wise managed workspace that you can do in here, and a lot of that depends on future development of the workspace, work set, and then the role option that we'll talk about next. So what program uses the NCDOT CONNECT Editions workspace? So of course it's used by OpenRoads Designer or ORD, OpenBridge Designer, Modeler, OBD, OBM. That's still being worked on. I mean, I'm pretty confident we can get that to work. There's OpenRail Designer that's using that recently. And there's future open ground, potential for open ground cloud that's possible that could use the Connect workspace. That's your geotechnical tools. So there's some documentation on some of the workspaces development that we have done so far. That I sent that to Patty and should be in your chat inbox so you can download these documents. So there's the first one is the NCDOT CONNECT workspace diagram. And this is very important on how we organize things and how does it actually work, the nuts and bolts of this. And I can share that real quick. Let me go and grab that. I thought I had it loaded up. Okay. Undergo workspace diagram. And pretty much all workspaces can be broken down to 3 tiers here by the number here. The first tier is your workspace root. Where do you want to store your workspace? This is a configuration variable that is fixed internally for NCDOT, but in the private sector or the other DOTs, they can redefine this location here. The second tier is the standard configuration, which everybody has. Everybody have an organization, everybody have organization civil and workspaces. This is the workspaces folder is the selectable part of, when you launch a file, you select a workspace. So this is where you will store all your DOT workspaces. A lot of requests from the private engineering firms in the past was, how do I incorporate multiple DOT workspaces into my organization or my firm? So this is the place where you would do it. And I can show you a demo here. So right now, this is the workspaces folder here. So a lot of folks, when they first look at the Connect workspace, they are a little bit puzzled by the name. Why is it named this way? Well, I think it will make more sense after you include multiple DOTs and organization into your firm's workspaces folder. There's a need to organize it in a fashion that makes sense to you. So right now, I only have one workspace, which is NCDOT. So, as you've seen this, you select the workspace here. I only have one workspace to select from besides the Bentley training examples here. And then I select a work set, which is like your project number. But it makes sense for, it doesn't make sense why we name it this way if you only have one workspace. But imagine if you have multiple workspaces and you work for multiple clients here. Now, when you launch a file here, you should be able to select. You see how the organization matter now? I have, town of Apex. I have the city of Charlotte, Raleigh, Wilmington workspaces, and the other DOT workspaces here. Remember, this is the selectable part of the workspace that the user see. The rest of them, the user do not have a choice to select anything. But this is the only selectable part of the workspace they can select from. And you notice here, a DOT may deliver it in some, naming convention that doesn't follow what you state here. So what you can do, and this is the flexibility in software, is rename this. So I have a odd DOT naming that doesn't fit into my scheme here. So I can rename, and it should not hurt anything to rename this because it's as part of the diagram. It's just a controller. This naming doesn't depend on any variable. It is just a controller according to the diagram. I'll explain that in a bit. So if I want to change this to fit my organization here. So you need to change the folder and the CFG file here to have the same name. And then now you will start MicroStation here. See, it's in as part of the selectable here. And, you know, you can organize it. It'll be your firm's CAD admin on how to organize this. The user, what the user see. Okay, this is just a suggestion from us. Back to the diagram here, 1 minute. So this is the selectable part, and that can be renamed by the user. So the third tier here is the disciplines. We used to have this under workspaces, and from the feedback from Bentley is these are not really workspaces because you can't have more than one workspaces for, I mean, you can, but it's not desirable. So we moved this, all these unit workspaces from in, we kind of explained that a little bit with the, in here for larger DOT that has multiple discipline or multiple sub-departments, I would call them, consider this discipline folder. And this is to mimic the future third drop-down list as rows. So the future row pick list here under discipline. Right now it's optional for the larger DOTs. You can put your multiple discipline in that folder. Now, the delivery mechanism. What's that? Okay. The delivery mechanism. You know, we use the Update Connect Workspace app, which is being fixed right now. Right now, we are delivering the updated workspace to a zip file. It's temporary until we can get the app fixed. The problem with the zip file is only overwrite files and folders with the same name. So if you created a different folder of a different file in the workspace, it's not going to overwrite it. It's going to keep it. So the Update Connect Workspace app treats it differently. It deletes everything and then update. The reason why it's being fixed now because we have new workspace folder structure. After it's fixed, each unit will maintain their own workspaces like they've done in V8. So that's what's going on with the workspace update program there. Desktop icons. That's the first shock that people see. You know, I know what everybody's thinking. It says, "Oh my, it looks like a pistol or a gun there," but that's not by intention. but yeah, there's a large amount of icons there. So one of the biggest concern is, are you probably making too many desktop icons to do what we used to do with MS Start? Maybe and probably, but remember that third drop-down list I mentioned before. This will all go away when we get that third drop-down list as a row. So the icons here, the some of the common questions we get is, do I have to include all these desktop icons? The answer is no on your desktop. So minimum desktop items required is the NCDOT WorkSpace input. That's required on your desktop. Then I would suggest you do a unit specific icon. For say roadway, I would say just do NCDOT roadway and or NCDOT all, which is the big push inside NCDOT right now. I'm just gonna load everybody workspaces. And if you have, I'll explain all the desktop icon later on, but if you have the My Choice icon, then you also must have to use the My Choice INP input file. A funny story about the My Choice INP and the WorkSet INP is the first version of the workspace. I actually call it CFG. NCD WorkSet CFG, My Choice CFG. And some of the folks was telling me, well, I'm not willing to edit a configuration file. That's just, I'm scared to break this thing. When you mention edit a CFG file, I'm just terrified of breaking the workspace. So I asked him, what happened if I just name it input? It's still a text file. Will you edit that? And the answer is yes, because I'm a GeoPack user. I'm used to criteria inputs, earthwork inputs. I can change and edit that all day. So I said, well, it's just if it's just a mental thing, yeah, I could change it to INP. But the first iteration of this was CFG. Okay, they're both text files, in other words. And I'll show you how to do that. So I mentioned the row pick list, the third drop-down pick list that Bentley is developing, and this is all hinges on those desktop icons. So what could it look like? So right here, when you go into file, you pick a workspace, you pick a work set, which is your project, and then this third drop-down list is called row. What do you want to load? What is your row in this? So I'm a roadway user. I'm a railroad guy. I'm a geotech person. So this row here, or I can do all. So I think this gives a peek at what they're looking to do when these DOTs started separating their sub-departments into, to that discipline folder. And that's what all these icons, desktop icons, supposed to represent, was this third row pick list. So just looking at the desktop icons here, I can launch single unit workspace here. Like here, I'll launch maybe hydraulics because I launched roadway too much. So I'm pretend I'm in hydraulics, and I'm just want to load their feature definitions, their levels, their cells. I can do a single workspace. The thing I can check is the level library. So everybody, according to that diagram, gets NCDOT. Now, depending on your desktop icon, do you also want to load NCDOT hydraulics? So that's, everybody gets NCDOT levels and features and the unit levels here. And a second place you may want to investigate is it's also under Explore, the feature definition library. And you don't want to double click this too much because it's gonna hang up. But you see you got NCDOT and you got NCDOT hydraulics. So you can load multiple, a combination here. I think default here, my choice here, and icon here. If I do my choice, the default here, it reads this input file here on your desktop. So my choice is set to C1 here. This configuration NCDOT unit combo set to C1. So C1 is roadway plus hydraulics. In case you're working in the DRN file. So I'll launch this here, my choice. Should expect to see both roadway and hydraulic level libraries. Along with NCDOT. So you will always get the top level NCDOT. You got hydraulics here, and yeah, roadway. Same thing with the feature definitions. So yeah, so roadway has roadway and roadway electrical lighting electrical. You got NCDOT and you got hydraulics. So that's what the combination do. Now we can also do NCDOT all here. And there's no time difference between loading and exiting out of whether single, combination, or all. So that's why the push is to just load everybody workspaces. The advantage of that is, when you working in multiple disciplinary files like the division and the PEF firms, you see how long it takes to launch a file when you exit out of it. That it saves you, maybe seconds each time, hour each day, couple of hours a week, add up to a year to waiting time. That's significant doing life cycle of a project. So if you load NCDOT all, you just move from file to file within the same project. You don't have to exit out a file, change workspace or change workset, and then launch another file again in the different folder.
Oh, there is a question. If you just double click on a DGN, what workspace comes up?
So yeah, that's a good question. When you double click on it, there's no, if it's in your unit, you have a environment variable called, say, I'm a roadway guy, I'm a hydraulics guy, I'm a location survey guy. It knows how to kick that as trigger. It's a trigger variable that knows what workspace to load. But we call that somewhat of branding. But if you don't have that variable defined, it just doesn't know. So it would do a no workspace, no workset. You're not loading anything. But yeah, we used to call that a brand. A file is always brand with which workspace, workset, and maybe a row that you're using. If it's, if it's not branded, it wouldn't know what workspace to use, what workset, and what discipline will load. So you got everybody levels here, from base mapping to environmental to erosion control to geotechnical, hydraulics, rail, roadway, utilities, so forth. So then, the advantage here is now I just do a soft close here. Well, no, I don't have to do that. I could just browse to a different file, a different folder, and then launch it from there. So there's no restriction on, like, if you have folder structure in your C drive, there's no permission as your Active Directory. So I can move from a hydraulic user to roadway to photogrammetry. But if you're using, if it's in Project Store, the permissions set, I can't go into a hydraulic folder and files and put roadway levels in there, because that's not allowed by the Active Directory permissions. I know a lot of folks are, scared of that happening, and we want to prevent accidental levels and stuff from being placed on, unit specific files. Okay. So so that's the My Choice INP, and the now little workset INP is, we have worksets stored everywhere, or projects stored everywhere. It could be on a C drive, it could be on an R drive, it could be, in a unit training folder. So way to look for that or search the different location is to use this NCDOT workset input file here. So let's look at that real quick. So right by default, as delivered here, it's going to, it should go be L1 is the deliver default. But take a look at this variable real quick. So L0 goes to your server location. It could be R drive, it could be S drive, or so forth. Your projects are stored there. L1 is to the projects to store on your C drive under this path here. L2 goes to the unit training worksets and workspace admin worksets there. And then use L3 goes to the Bentley default, which is under workspaces workset folder. So by default, I'm using L1, which is the project store on the C drive. So if I launch a file here and I pick my work set, and that's the mechanism that triggers, you know, where the work set locations are. Okay. So after I pick my workspace here, I must also select my work set. So if you select a workspace, you have to select a work set or a project. Even though in the past we had a work set called no work set, you are still picking a work set. It just happens to be called no work set or not TIP related. There is something called no workspace, no work set where you're not loading anything. You're not loading NCDOT, you're not loading any unit workspaces. There's just no workspace, no work set. And you can brand a file with that. So here's all the projects I have. B0000 is delivered with our workspace. That's an example work set that's on your C drive. So I browse there. Here is B00. And has the normal unit folder structures. And this is somewhat of a modified ORD folder structure in ProjectWise. But yeah, that's how you would navigate to the work sets that's stored under your C drive. Okay. These are all the work set I have set up on my C drive. Now, if I change this to L0, here, and go to my ServCon here, everybody that works at DOT know what ServCon and ORD drive does. So for external user, ORD drive or ServCon just connects our project's TIP number and call it ORD drive. So if you look here, I'm connected as ORD drive. It's connected as R2635C here. So that's the only connection I have to ORD drive. And I've set this to 0. When I launch a file here, I'm expecting just to see R2635 as the available work set I'm able to select from to brand my file. See, that's the only project that's connected as ORD drive. And then, you know, if you are storing your project on the S drive or any other letter drive there on the server, it will list all the TIP numbers for all your projects on that inside that folder in that list. Okay, if I change this to L2, this will go to the unit training work sets or the training folder. Say you want to do roadway training. This works in conjunction with this next variable here, training here. In case I do NCDOT all or a combination of in my choice here, we don't know exactly if you do all or a combination here, which unit training you want to do. So this third variable was introduced recently to tell the workspace I want to load any workspaces here, but the training I want to do is called, it's under roadway. Okay, so launch here. I could have done NCDOT all, or is combination of, or any other units. But if you do any other unit, you won't load the, the right library or so forth. You must have roadway somewhere in that combination. Select my workspace, my work set now. Every unit will have an admin. This is like an equivalent to a no work set. It's a generic non-TIP number work set that I'm just doing something in my workspace, or I'm doing something special. It's not TIP related. But see here, now you have work sets for our 3 training for under roadway here. And each unit, when they do their training, can put the work set under their unit in this manner and change the location in your work set IMP to go to that location. Quick note about plan training. The list expanded here. The latest update to the training manual was I did a text, search and replace, but the screenshot is still out of date because that's going to take a little bit longer to do. But each one of these now, it used to be a whole day class at NCLUG conferences to do 9 modules. Of course, we have 19 now, and each module is expected to be like a 2-hour classroom time, equivalent classroom time that we go into detail, more detail how to do certain things, like plan sheet, profile sheet, cross section. We go to indexing and creating interchange sheets and so forth. So that's the future of our quick start training there. And number 3, just go to your workspace worksets folder. That's the Bentley default there. Okay. And 1248. Okay. That's my choice combination there. Input, we just went over that. Okay, the last item is I want to touch on is how we converted our V8 workspaces to ORD, and that's required for each unit to do. So the basic minimum requirement is the level, the levels, cells has to be rescaled. We used to use what we call NCDOT project scale versus now we're using ORD annotation drawing scale. The difference between the two is when we say 1 inch goes 50 feet in project scale was